My name is Kwabna Chenche Hiniboti, and apologies for that technical challenge there. We've rectified that. So we can now get on with news there. So our very first story is and the majority in Parliament is today expected to push through a power agreement that will see some additional 400 megawatts added to the country's supply stock. Now, the deal with Early Power Limited, a Ghanaian entity owned by Bridge Power Project sponsors Endeavour Energy, General Electric and Sage Petroleum, is however costing the country an estimated $953 million, an amount energy experts describe as outrageous given the quantum of power that will be generated in exchange. Energy policy advisor at Energy Think Tank and Africa Center for Energy Policy says a preliminary assessment of the deal points to an absence of due diligence that would result in excess cost for power if the deal gets parliamentary approval. Dr. Ismail Aka is also warning aspects of the power agreement that would make it mandatory for government to secure fuel for Early Power Limited to run power plants would prove detrimental to the country in the long run. He was speaking on PM Express with Malik Dabu last night. Let's take a listen to him.
Well, I think that it is very unfortunate. But what I would say is that the bottom line, I think, is very simple. We shouldn't rush into this deal. I will call on Parliament to reject it. That is one, because we don't have money to get any fuel for anybody. If we have money, let us get fuel for existing. But the fact is that Pontema plant uses diesel. Senate uses heavy crude oil, light crude oil. We have TAPCO and TICO, they also can use light crude oil. I'm not talking even about gas. Why is Pontema plant down? Is that also vandalism somewhere? We need money to go and buy fuel. What we are saying is that if we have the means, let us get fuel for the plants we have. If these people, Early Power, they are bringing, we need more so that we can even export. That is very good. But if you are bringing up, come, get a PPA, produce like any other person. You produce, we pay you what you are producing. We shouldn't entangle ourselves. We are carrying so much risk so that tomorrow, if they are not producing, then we are paying for capacity charges. Tariff will go up, and the consumer will be the ultimate person to suffer. We've issued 44 provisional licenses to get 14,000 megawatts. That is point 2. It means that we are not in need of capacity. So if any other thing, we should go for competitive bidding. That yes, Ghana, we want more producers. If you have your plant, come. Then we sit down, we take the best and the lowest cost for Ghana. But if you go there with your hands tied at your back, meanwhile you have machines home, and you tell them that I'm in need, I'm desperate, that is where they will start with you at 18. But even bringing it to 12.5, what it means is that we are going to pay about 51 pesos. Ameri is 52. What is the difference between the two?
So that's his position on that very matter. But another energy expert, Kojo Poku, who also spoke on the show, described the deal as an unnecessary one that was going to cost the country too much money.
The argument on this thing is multifaceted. Initially, they put it out there and says, oh, would 400 megawatts solve the energy problem? On the surface of it, it sounds like good news, doesn't it? Because we are in darkness. People think that, oh, if you are to now bring in 400 megawatts of power, it will solve our problem.
Because we are shedding 450 megawatts.
Well, more or less, depending on which time of the day you are looking at it. But they now send a document saying emergency power plant. Emergency in what sense? This plant is going to be built in 3 years. So what is the emergency about it? Secondly, who is Early Power? Ask yourself. There's a company called Early Power. Google Early Power and see if anything comes up. Government is not going to procure this machinery, or like in the case of Ameri, where it was a VRA transaction, where VRA, after the transaction is over, the money is paid, the machine goes to VRA. An independent company, which will become an independent power producer, an IPP. He wants to, just like Asogli or any other company out there, CNET or any other company out there that want to come into Ghana and do power. But these are Ghanaian individuals that have worked in upstream, downstream petroleum sector. None of them have had any experience in producing power. Early Power has no experience.
Well, the minority in Parliament has raised serious issues with the deal, accusing government of trying to rip the state off. But what really does this deal entail? Now, here is a summary. Right after the summary, my colleague Raymond Akwa, who has been studying a bit of the documents that cover this very agreement, will be joining me in studio and will be taking us through this very deal. But here's a summary of what it really entails. So, as you can see, it's going to cost the country $636.8 million just for the construction of the plant. One component that has raised a bit of a problem, it's this particular part. It's going to cost the country $636.8 million. Now, for insurance costs, the country is paying some $3.7 million. If you go on further, there are other components that will be showing on your screen in a while. Also, the financing cost for this very project, we are told, is estimated at some $178.7 million. Also, the development cost for this very power deal is costing the country $39.8 million. The operation and maintenance costs stand currently at $23.5 million as well. And the construction management costs of the early power deal agreement with the government of Ghana stands at $13.5 million. The working capital needed for this very project, we are told, is some $10.5 million. And other costs, including miscellaneous and contingencies, stands at $46.9 million. And the total project is now $953.4 million. So that's a bit of a summary as far as this very project is concerned. And there have been a lot of quotes and issues raised with this very figure and the components, the breakdown we just brought to you. But, well, I'm a layman, but Raymond Akwa has been doing a lot of studying as far as this very issue is concerned. He's been perusing the documents, and he's joining me now in studio with some more on what he's gathered so far. Raymond, many thanks for joining us. So, taking a look at this document, what does it entail?
Okay, so first and foremost, there's a good part that we as a country have agreed to go on. That is going for combined cycles. So we have a gas and natural gas on this particular end. So fuel and gas for the same particular plant. That is good. And America is supposed to go in a similar line. Some vision as a country, because of the fluctuations in gas supply and other things, is to have an alternative in this particular case. But what we agreed to do, and this particular company I'm talking about, the Early Power, which is the conglomerate taking charge of this particular project, was incorporated in Ghana only in October 27, 2014. So 2 years ago.
Just about 2 years ago.
Yes, and there are other partakers in this particular deal that mostly is Losa, because we know it's not only Sage Petroleum and the ECG, there's also EPL Holdings, which is in what they call the USA, General Energy Investments, GE. GE already has a plan to construct some, what they call it, power plants, which is supposed to go 1 billion already, that we've discussed in times past, and also quantum gas terminals. So these are the other partakers in this particular deal. I mean, the entire project involves not only the development, but the ownership, operation, and management of this particular combined cycle. The understanding we have here is that it will be situated in Tema, and that's very close to Tor because of what Tor's new strategic vision is supposed to be. So beyond the 25-year period, which these people who develop it are going to be in charge, it is the responsibility of Ghana to nominate an entity that would actually be in charge of what they call it, running this entity. Now, when you look at the details quite closely, that's where the main concern is coming from. The industry-wide, World Bank, IMF, the dictator price across the world is that you spend at most 1 million on 1 megawatt.
So that's 1 million per megawatt?
Per megawatt.
That's the maximum?
So yes, at worst, if you want to inflate it, it goes to 1.2, 1.5 million. So if it's 1 million, then we are looking at some 400 million. With all the other costs involved, then it could be like 500 or 600 million. The concern being raised about this particular one is that it is surprising to have costs building up to 953.4 million. The only inclination government gave the people of this country, which they said was good news, was because government was not paying out of its pocket and the consolidated fund immediately. But there's an alternative to that we should not lose sight of. The Ghanaian people are going to pay. That's the difference.
But if you're not paying now, and it means you're not really going to feel the pinch. So why are we so bothered about it?
No. The construction, the fuel, and the maintaining of the plant is not coming from the government coffers, so you're not going to be taxed to do that.
Okay.
But you are going to pay for the entire cost of the transaction through power bills. Don't forget, you pay it as electricity bills.
So it's going to be passed on to the consumer.
Very good.
So you pay more for electricity
at a higher rate than is in existence and currently being practiced. So that's one difference that ought to also be established. The understanding also is that, and you know that recently there's been high talk of high levies and taxes when we put together the energy sector levies, which actually culminated in some increments. People are even speculating will be 100% or so. But this is going to add on to that. Currently, the 50, 52, 42 that we are paying for what they call power, this is slightly higher than that. So the question is being asked here is that why is there a clamor for, and this was supposed to be an emergency plan.
Which are told its construction will be done in about 3 years.
We are told that the emergency understanding has been changed. Deputy Power Minister George Napo said because we are out of that emergency situation, government had to resit with them, redo the what they call the contract this way. So if this was the read-down contract based on the fact that we are out of the emergency zone, what was the original one supposed to look like? So that's the other concern that's been raised about this deal and much of its
one key thing I picked from what you've said so far is the fact that, well, despite the increments we've had to deal with over the past few months, that's about 57 point something percent we are paying now. Even in some instances, we are told that we are paying a lot more than that. The GN research has come out to say that consumers are paying much more than the projected amount we were supposed to pay for in the first instance. We are told that once this thing comes into fruition, it comes into force, we are going to pay some more, about 100% more of that new tariff we are paying.
That's the interesting part. Well, it was good that you see we are not paying directly from government coffers, but it is more dangerous when they overly burden Ghanaian with already high taxes and that huge mix of energy levies recently imposed would have to compound it by having to pay more. And in this case, the interesting part is that it's not like it's also going to be still dependent on the fuel and the gas we are talking about. So when the cost of these elements go up, it will still go up. But there's other charges that will make this one higher than the other plants and the cost in which you are paying per unit for these plants. So the question is, we're out of emergency zone. And indeed, the main question people are even asking is that as we speak, we have the generation capacity of about 3,000. If you take out the Akosobo and other things that are having problems, 1,800 or so is our installed capacity today.
But the finance minister even mentioned that we have enough.
Very good. So the problem we all agree is not with the capacity to generate. It's with how to run these plants.
I see.
Why is there not a solution geared at running the plants?
Okay.
Why is there a solution only geared at making sure that there are more generation capacities which may not be running? Government's only answer to this question is that they don't control the shortfall in the gas and other forms of fuel. So why don't we looking at fuel security? To them, their solution is the combined cycle.
Okay.
But it doesn't make it any better because we know that gas is 3 times lower and cheaper than the other alternative for fuel we are having in this case. So it's more like a deal we got in because we are afraid we're going to have more crisis, but now we don't know whether we still have to go ahead and deal with it. And many people are asking the Parliament of this Republic to rather focus on the important things. We know on a day like this, their timing and all of that keeps them in a way that makes it difficult to do proper scrutiny. But the future of this country is going to pay for this deal.
Okay. Right. Raymond, many thanks for that update. And that was Raymond Dakwa with a summary of what really that deal entails. And he also told us a few of the many concerns that have been raised by quite a number of people, including the minority in Parliament. Mind you, they are, well, I'm speaking of the minority in Parliament, well, they are suggesting that the majority would likely bully their way through this time around. Remember, Parliament is rising today. So that means any deals that are currently before the House need to be passed today. And so it's going to be a pretty interesting situation. But we'll be live in Parliament, though. We'll be bringing you live visuals of all the things that happen in Parliament today, all the debates and all the interactions will be live there. Remember, this is your Joy News channel. We'll bring you more on that in a bit. But away from that now, let's talk about some other issues. And physician assistants at the University of Cape Coast have declared a strike starting Monday over the failure of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and the Vice Chancellor's Ghana to migrate them onto the single spine salary structure. According to the physician assistants, for the past years, all attempts to get the authorities, including the National Labour Commission, to see to their migration has fallen on deaf ears. Emmanuel J. Hinako is spokesperson for the group.
We have 2 points. We have not been migrated to the single spine since its migration or implementation. And our remuneration has also not come. In actual fact, some of us came in as medical assistants, and they are still keeping that title for us. Those who are newly employed, they are actually giving them titles that does not go with their certificate. They are calling them nursing, senior nursing officer, and the rest. And that is our problem. Since the implementation, in fact, after the university implemented the single spine and for the staff, it took about 1 year that we found out that we have been left out. So since 2012, we hinted the administration with a letter about it, thinking it was an administrative error. Yet, 2012 till now, series of communications, meetings, letters, it hasn't come out with anything fruitful. Yes, in fact, letters, if I should show you, piles, letters to our employers down here, UCC, letters to VC Ghana, letters to Fair Wages, and letters to Labor. The latest one is Labor Commission. In fact, when we come to the main hospital, most aspects of the OPD job, especially those of us here, rest on the physician assistant. We see cases. In fact, there was a time somebody was asking, which case are you able to manage? And I answered briefly, we manage all cases in the sense that whichever case that comes to us, we will have to assess, diagnose, and if it needs treatment, we refer. Referring a patient to the next step is also part of management. So we manage all cases that come to the hospital. We feel very cheated, very demoralized, and humiliated because our colleagues elsewhere, all of them throughout the country, are on the single spine. And when you come to the university, they will tell you you don't qualify to be at certain area. And that is humiliation. Demotion, if I should put it that way. They actually demoted us. After working for them several years, we planned to start some sit-down strike to begin with from Monday. Monday will come around, but will not be in the consulting rooms to work. And if nothing is done, then other things will follow.
So that was Emmanuel J. Hinako, who is a spokesperson for physician assistants at the University of Cape Coast. Well, we do know now that they have declared a strike. That strike is expected to come into full force on Monday. They do have some issues with a single spine salary structure. They feel they've been treated unfairly by the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and several other entities related to this very issue. We'll be bringing you some more on this. We'll be speaking to our correspondent in the region who has been following this issue. We'll be speaking to him at midday as he joins us with some more. But time now for us to take a break here on News Desk. But when we come back, we have a conversation about the textile industry, and it's pretty good to see me in an African print. I've seen quite a number of other people today in an African print, but it appears the fight against piracy of textiles in the country is not getting anywhere. We'll be bringing you details of that right after these messages. Stay with us.